AI made writing so much easier. If they're just using AI and they're not putting their own unique message on it, it will get lost because people are now, they're getting numb to the generic words that are being put out there. So what you put out really has to be impactful. It has to definitely have a message, something that resonates with them.
What led you into journalism then?
I always wanted to be a writer. You know, you never think it's going to become your career, but for me, it happened.
So biggest red flag when a business owner describes what they do?
When they only talk in jargon, that's my biggest red flag. When they say, we are the best specialty, blah, 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 but at the end, I still don't know what they're talking about, that's a red flag.
What do you think is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned whilst building Blue Gecko?
First of all,
thank you very much for coming and working on it. I really appreciate your time. Michelle, so Emmy nominated journalist. You've been Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and founder of one of the top communication agencies in the GCC. And you built a career and a business across 3 continents. I suppose that's quite a bit to unpack, isn't it, right there?
yeah, I literally have packed and unpacked many, many times during my life.
Yeah, that's quite a bit. So let's hear your story. Like, take us back a bit. I mean, wow. I mean, and I forgot to even add in Belgium as well. We've got to touch on some Belgium as well. So,
yeah, then there's
how did you all
Switzerland
start?
in there too.
And certainly well travelled. So, what led you into journalism then?
I always wanted to be a writer, and it was something that, you know, you never think it's going to become your career, but for me it happened. And it wasn't something that I ever planned on doing. I really was going to go more into the graphic design side, and writing was going to be the backup plan. It was going to be, I'm going to just write best-selling books on the weekend, and I'll be an artist during the week. But it turns out that the writing actually was paying my bills, and the art career never really took off. So it just happened to happen. Sometimes you just have to go where the journey takes you.
That's right, yeah. I mean, to win sort of like an award for that recognition of all that effort and work, I mean, that must have been quite something. I mean, what did you win that on the back of? Like, what piece of work, or was it just a length of work?
It was on digital news. It was, there's always Emmys for TV broadcasting. And they had done, a few years they had done for digital news, where you can do extra stuff on the website. So I had done something on droughts within California, and that was the piece that was nominated, where you could go online, there'd be additional information, additional maps on where things were happening, rainfalls over the year. So all that extra stuff that is normal now was something that was more innovative 10 years ago when I got the award.
Ah, I see. Yes. Yeah, so that's so you were ahead of your time then, I suppose.
I was ahead of my time. I like to be one step ahead of everything, doing what nobody else wants to do. I'm like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, well, certainly a good things in that, definitely, for sure. So why did you then, perhaps, what was in Saudi Arabia and all of that sort of that area that wanted to take your skills and what you could do to there? What did you think that was over there that perhaps was missing and you could bring?
I didn't actually know anything about Saudi Arabia. This was about 12 years ago. I'd been already working in news for 10, 15 years, so I was getting tired of the news cycle, and I wanted to change. And I wanted to not just change careers, but I wanted to change countries. So I had decided I'm going to work overseas. I'm going to leave the US. I'm going to move somewhere else. And the BBC, they didn't want me. I kept applying. So I thought, okay, I'm going to branch out to other parts of the world. And I saw the ad for the job in Saudi. And it was for a very innovative university at the time. It's still the only one of its kind in the kingdom. It was the only one where men and women studied together, the only one where they were going to focus on science and PhDs and technology, and they weren't taking any undergrads. And the vision at that time was to just bring all the great minds from all over the world, all the great scientists who wanted to make a difference, and come together and bring back the golden age of knowledge. Didn't matter of your religion, didn't matter man or female, as long as you had a brilliant mind and you wanted to make a difference. And I thought, okay, this is a place where I really like that vision. I'm going to pack my bags and move to Saudi Arabia and help them do this. And I did, and I haven't looked back. It was a big pivotal point in my career to bring me to the Middle East, to understand the cultures here. The last 12 years within the Middle East and all the countries, there's been a great deal of change. So I've been there to witness it all. So it's really been an inspiring time for me.
So you mentioned you packed up your bags. Where was you packing at that time? Where did you originally come from then?
I'm originally from Canada, but at that time I was living in Phoenix, Arizona. So, which is also nice. I really went from one desert to another desert.
Just got a
So
thing
hot
for
and hot.
deserts. Yeah, that's brilliant.
But it still was a change for me because the Middle East is very different from the U.S. It still is today. So you do have
Yes.
to go through a little bit of a culture shock, and also the change of when you give up your career. I had a good job in TV. To give it up to go to some place that you don't know, you've never been. So new city, new country, new languages, and new job all at the same time. It was a bit of a risky move, but it turned out really well. So it was worth the risk.
I mean, that's quite courageous when you think about it, isn't it? I mean, if don't mind my asking, just roughly, how old was you in your 20s and your 30s?
I was old. I should have known better. I was already 42 at the time.
Perhaps you did know better. Perhaps you did know, because look at you now. You've been there since. So, I mean, that is quite a courageous and bold move to go to a place, like you say, of so much uncertainty. And, who knows, it might not have worked out, but you certainly took that move, and I guess now you're, reaping the rewards of that because you stayed there, for all this time.
Yeah, I did go on and off. I worked for a couple of years, and then I did move to Switzerland and work for a science publisher there. And then another opportunity came up in Saudi. I returned because I did really love it. And then I did go back to Belgium and started my agency in Belgium, and then came back again to Saudi, and then now in the UAE. So, but there's something about the region. I do really love it here. They always have amazing things going on, and people are very positive.
Yeah. Well, I've been there a few times, and I can say it's absolutely amazing. So I do get what you mean there for sure. And with all the other stuff that's been going on as well, but you think at the core of it, they're just so innovative, and they just want to move forward and encourage those that are like-minded. And I guess that's probably why you fit in so well, because like you say, you always want to be one step ahead of everybody. And I think that's probably exactly what they're doing too. So it's probably well suited.
Yes, and you have a lot of you said like-minded. There's a lot of risk takers here. A lot of expats, and everyone's coming to try something new. So you have a lot of people where you have things in common with, which is the entrepreneurial spirit is very alive and well here in the UAE and within the region.
For sure, yeah. I said I've only been there a few times, but from when I've been there, I've had some business meetings there and a couple of podcasts as well. And it's fast. It is fast. It happens at such a quick pace. And I was messaging one guy. He said to me, when you're next over here, message me and we'll meet up. And I messaged him the night before, actually, because I had forgotten that he'd said that. So I thought I'd follow up. I'm here. And he suggested breakfast meeting the next morning at 8 a.m. And he was there, ready. And I was like, wow, like it's just seemed crazy. Normally in London, it would be like, oh, let's just get a schedule in the diary, perhaps for a month's time. But there it's like, okay, you're here, let's do it now. Let's squeeze in a breakfast meeting right now. And before he went into the office at 9:30, it's like, it's just crazy. It is just crazy. Brilliant though, lovely. I loved it. It's like an electric vibe there. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's always something going on, and you can never sit still. It's almost, it's too much sometimes.
Yeah, brilliant. So you obviously had a talent of telling other people's stories. What made you start telling yours or working on your story?
On my story, I still tell other people's stories because I do call myself a language architect. So I just do it not for the news. I do it for companies and individuals. But I do like to be, as I mentioned, one step ahead. So when I worked in news, I was a journalist for a while, but as soon as digital news took off, that was the role that I embraced. Nobody wanted to do it. They're all like, no, we're going to stay in TV. And I'm like, no, the web is going to be the next thing. Social media is the next thing. And I was in it. And the same with moving to Saudi. When I came, there wasn't that many people who were moving to the Middle East, and then it boomed. So I was lucky with that.
Yeah.
And even now with what I'm doing with helping people with AI retrievability, it's something that's new, but I'm like, I get it. I already know how LLMs work. I know how words work. I'm going to help people tell their stories and make sure that AI actually picks it up and people know about their story afterwards. So I still tell stories, but I just do it under my own name now.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah, brilliant. Well, I think nowadays with personal branding and all of this sort of thing, I think it's now more than ever so important to do it, isn't it, really? Because like and I'm only using words of like Daniel Priestley and Kelly Lundberg, a mutual friend of ours. So when he says like everyone has a personal brand, it's just if you want to actually sculpture it into where you want it to be, because someone will still be thinking something of you, but perhaps you should deliver what you actually want the message to be. And I think your purpose, well, your skills are certainly meant for that, aren't they? Really, with like you say, it's the history that you've had, the experience that you've got, just nicely go into that, I think.
Yeah, and building trust. Like even when I was working in the newsroom and working with the reporters and showing them this is why you need to be on Facebook, this is why you need to be on Instagram, because it's their personal brand. They're like, no, I'm a journalist. I just do this. I'm like, no, you need to build trust. People need to believe you when you're going to tell them about something where it's going to save their life later on. They need to tune in because they trust you, they like you. So that personal brand was already there. And even people who, when people don't understand it, I'm like, okay, imagine me. I've been gone out of Canada for a long, long time. But recently I went back and I met somebody, I haven't seen them since high school. And they're like, what are you doing now? I think I saw you at Walmart last week. I'm like, well, that definitely wasn't me because I don't live here anymore. But in their mind, my personal brand was still 16-year-old Michelle living in small town in Canada. They haven't seen me or what I'm doing because they're not on those channels. So my personal brand stopped there. So if you're not always talking and updating people, your personal brand, whatever you're doing, is stuck in somebody else's mind and it's incorrect. And they make up your own history for you and your own future. So it's funny when you talk to people and they don't know what you've been doing and you're like, but I'm out there. And if I'm out there, imagine if they're not out there, what people are thinking. And that goes with CEOs. It goes with anybody who has a company. You think you're doing really well with word of mouth, but to get your other customers, you need to start spreading that brand out and off the different channels.
Isn't that funny you mentioned about that if you don't continue to do it, then people are going to just have that conception of you that this is where you're at and you're there, or you're at that level forever until you update them. Or like you say, they might hear a snippet of news and now, like you say, they're now dressing up what your future or your future self is now becoming. Unless you update them yourself and take control of that, somebody else is going to do it for you.
Yeah.
And that's quite amazing.
So quickly, it's so changing. We are changing so quickly. People think that they haven't changed, but they have. Like even with another example I have. Say you worked with somebody 10 years ago, and they were a junior back then. So in your mind, you think their skills are still the junior, and when you see them later, and they're like a CEO someplace else, your mind is like not caught up to how did they go from somebody who could not even do the photocopying to somebody who's running a company, but they did a lot of stuff in between, but you just didn't hear about it.
Yeah. Do you know you saying that actually? It's quite funny. I've got a couple of questions on the back of that, but isn't it funny how that's how it was years ago before social media and the website was about you, and then obviously people were used to write, didn't they? And then like write back home and that sort of thing, and if you didn't update them, that your brain couldn't comprehend that difference between that gap of time. How did you arrive, did start from here and now arrive at this, good and bad, whatever it is? But isn't it funny how, like, before social media, before the internet was around, that was just the way it was. Unless you saw them often or caught up with them on a telephone, you wouldn't really understand where they're at.
Or your mothers were friends and they talked about you.
Oh, yeah. Your mum would always update everybody, for sure.
Yeah, everyone knew what you were doing.
Yeah, oh, without a doubt. But one thing on change, I just wanted to ask you, what's your views on change? If someone says to you, oh, you've changed, would you take that as a compliment or would you be concerned?
I think it would depend on who I speak with. I think I've changed well. Like, I haven't become an evil person or a bad person. So for me, I do see it as a compliment, especially because I know I was really quiet and introverted, especially in high school, and I was in the shadows. So if they say, oh, you've changed, I'm like, okay, good. So I have evolved and you've noticed. But some people are afraid of change. They don't want to, they're not ready to come along on the ride with you. And that's okay too. You can't, as we mentioned earlier, I move a lot. I like being in new countries. I like starting new things. I like taking risks. Other people, they're less risky. They still live in the same house for the last 20 years, and that is fine. That's completely fine. So you have to, when they say you've changed, yeah, everyone's growing. They're also growing. And I think change is good. If you don't change, your brain, I think, kind of can go to mush.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I totally agree. I think change is a good thing. And when someone says, "Oh, you've changed," you're like, "Well, that's actually pretty good because it means that I'm trying to push the boundaries. I'm trying new things, and good that you've noticed." And like you say, hopefully it's a good thing as well. You know, you wouldn't want to, oh, you've changed, you now rob banks. It's not like that. I'm on a good thing, I mean, you know. You never used to rob banks before. But, you know, that sort of thing I think could be really... I just wanted to get your views on that because it was quite topical. Last week I was speaking to someone and they said, oh, people keep saying I'm changing. I'm like, yeah, but that's a good thing, though. Why do you see it as a negative? Don't be concerned about it. You know, it's a good thing. So that's why I asked. I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. Yeah, I think so, too.
Sometimes you're changed. Sometimes you don't even know it. You've changed, but you've actually inspired people to do better. And you don't know about it until 5 years later. And they're like, you know, you did something, and that really motivated me to do something else. Because if you could do it, I could do it. I'm like, oh, well, that was good.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the time, you don't actually hear it until much later, you know?
Yeah.
So you don't actually think you're having that effect on people, but it's only when you hear it a little while later, you're like, oh, okay, I'll continue as I am then. Yeah. So I think you wrote about a piece about great work keeps getting lost in business and sort of like people are not hearing about them. Do you think that's an industry problem or a world problem? Or is it just a fact that people don't know how to get their message across in the right way that connects and resonates with their audience?
It's a mix of all of them. People are doing stuff, and the thing is, a lot of people are using AI. Made writing so much easier, and I love AI, so I'm not gonna say people shouldn't use it, but if they're just using AI and they're not putting their own unique message on it, it will get lost because people are now, they're getting numb to the generic words that are being put out there. So what you put out really has to be impactful. It has to definitely have a message, something that resonates with them. And that message, it could be life-changing, or it might just be something new, a different perspective. It might just be something that makes your audience know that you understand the challenges or the problem that you're going to, and whether you have a product for them that will solve it, or a service that will solve it, or you just have an opinion that they might be, oh, that's different, I never thought about that. Those kind of things are the things that are going to stand out. It's so easy to get a press release published. It's so easy. You can write a book with AI in like a weekend, where before it took months to put those things together. So there's so much out there now. And even social media, everyone is on it. And some people are better than others. And it's entertainment too. And not all of us are entertaining. I'm going to admit that I can't do TikTok because I'm not entertaining, but I love to watch other people's entertaining stuff on TikTok. Everyone has to find their skill. And it's just
sure.
making sure you have it and you have something important to say.
Well, that's obviously very true and matters, of course. But do you know what? I find that some people don't necessarily have important things and I'm only talking about one or two that I've experienced, but they do it so well that it just really resonates with people, and I don't know why. And you think,
Those are
all you're
storytellers.
selling is this, so all you're talking about is that. But it's just the way they do it. So I think there's a real skill to that.
There is a skill, and it's this is where as a journalist I like it, because not everybody. When I talk to people, they're like, "Well, I have nothing to say." I'm like, "I'm a journalist. I had to find stories every single day. Tell me your story, and I'm going to find something in there that's interesting for you. We're going to put it out. We're going to make sure you have something to say, or something that people is going to listen to, because everyone does have a story. Everyone has something interesting." But it is on how you get it out there, on what nugget, what words you need to put together to get people to pay attention, what images you're going to show with it, how are you going to do it? Is it going to be on video? Is it just going to be text? Is it going to be an article that goes out? So is it going to be a podcast? All these things. It's what medium, what message, and what story is behind it.
So you mentioned about language architecture a little while ago, and also that's what you do. So kind of break that down a bit for me. What do you mean by language architecture?
Language is, some people think that language is just words, but a lot of times, especially nowadays, or if you have a company or a business or even a personal brand, it is almost like a system. So you used to find these messages, as I said, or these key stories, these things that will be interesting to your audience, and you build your messaging from there, and that makes your foundation. And from there, you build your architecture. So from there, you're like, okay, I have my messages that I think are going to work, what I want to say or what I want to be known for. And then it's like, how do I want to say it? And where do I want to put it? So you just keep building on that architecture, because it can't just be in one place. If you're only doing it on a website, or you're only doing it on a podcast, then it's not going to travel as far as if it was on social media, the website, everything, all your messaging has to be together. Mm-hmm. And one thing that happens with companies is they do this, they're on everything, but they're saying it all in completely different ways and have completely different messages everywhere. So then nobody knows what they stand for. It's like the rumor mill in a town where somebody knows that you did this, somebody knows that you did that, but nobody put them together. So then nobody knows who you are.
From the same company? So do you mean the same company will have different messages or different tones of voice?
Yes, because they haven't come up with that main foundation. So they all are working for the same place, but they all think the company's doing something different because they're focused on their little bubble. So they haven't all come together and say, here's what we really stand for. Here's what we do. So it's and then it gets messy, because if everyone's out there talking, then you're going, well, what does a company really do? What's their specialty? How can they help me?
Yeah. So let's say, for instance, you've got, let's say a normal business would supposedly have a website, you would hope,
Yes.
and then perhaps social media platforms. But then also any literature or any kind of advertisement, etc., like email campaign stuff that they go out to, their clients or potential leads. But then also they have the same messaging internally, so all of their team understand the same tone of voice, the same message, the same personality, if you like.
Yes.
Is that what you mean? So it's fully...
Yeah.
Right. So is that what you mean? Like the whole thing is just like a complete synergy, no matter that entire
complete
environment.
Synergy. Everyone
Right.
can still has their own tone of voice and their own personality, but the underlying message is the same. And it can't be something generic, because because sometimes you go on the website and it's beautifully written, but it says absolutely nothing. It just sounds fancy. We service blah blah blah, but it really doesn't say anything. So that it actually the messages have to say something to at the same time.
Yeah.
So I love it, because it's like layered art. You have the bed and then a little bit more, and you're painting it deeper and deeper and deeper, and then suddenly it's like, okay, now we got a masterpiece.
Yeah. I totally get what you mean there, because so I've got a couple of companies, and one of them we paid a guy to come in, and he done what we call a brand book. And he broke down the entire business and understood what services we were delivering, what our ideal client profile was, and also what sort of team we had, but at the same time, what sort of personalities they were like, what they thought of the company. And then we put it all together and created this brand book. And it was like our tone of voice, our brand personality, our brand messaging. It was all of those sort of things. Of course, then core values and so on came out of that. But what we found is that the moment that we done that, we had to change everything. So it was an expensive exercise, but it kind of stood the test of time, because it stood like that for about 5 or 6 years. And then only literally this year, we're just rebranding it, but just ever so slightly. But it's the same message. So when you speak to a member of the team, it's the same vision. When you speak to, let's say, our client, they know exactly what we're about. And it's the same thing over and again. At the time, I didn't value the money that I was spending. But now, after seeing what it brings in, and like you said, the synergy of it all, I really value it and I understand it. Because like you say, otherwise it's mixed messages. And then it's like, well, is this a different company? Who is this guy? Or who is this company? So you've got to have that same thing. And like you said, and perhaps you can correct me if I'm wrong, but would all that stem from your vision or your why or your story? Or are they the same? What do you think on that?
I think it depends on the size of the company, but it definitely has to do with the vision. And the tone of voice, however, will come from the story, because people will have their own personal beliefs and their own personal stories that tie into that vision to give it a little bit more meat. Otherwise, you're just corporate jargon the whole time. So it is a mix of both. And it's just, like you said, it's really nice when all that synergy comes together. And the thing is, it stands the test of time, but it also stands against backlash. Like, say you had one client out of all your hundreds or thousands that said something bad. But the thing is, if your messaging and your branding is so strong, people discount it. Like, for example, with Apple, if they make a buggy phone, we forgive them because we totally believe in that consistent message that this is what they are.
That's so true.
So if you're an Apple fan, you never like, I'm going to go to the Android. You just accept it. It's like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
They just had a bad day.
An expensive bad day, certainly for the consumer.
An expensive bad day, but we forgive them because their messaging and their branding is so consistent and so strong.
Yeah, that's so true. Because even like with that an Apple analogy there, a couple of iPhones ago, there wasn't really much difference in it. And I think they put a thing out saying, okay, do you know what, we really shouldn't have released that as an actual a new version. Let's wait for the next one. And everyone was like, okay, we'll wait. And it was exactly that. Although they'd spent maybe £1,000 or whatever it is, on that phone. Okay, we'll wait, no worries. And then, to be fair, Apple did deliver. They delivered a really good new edition thereafter. But you think, that's so true. I didn't even think about it like that, but that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it.
It really works, but it can be an expensive endeavor at the beginning. But the thing is, now with AI, having that synergy all intact also makes sure that they're going to be the ones surfaced when people do ChatGPT or when they're on Google AI and they just type in, who is the best person I can find in my area that does this. So they can at least get some quick results, where before you're just hoping it's all going to come together after you spent all this money and everyone stays on board.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and hope. Yeah, hope.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening right now and they want to have that synergy, or certainly work towards it and they can understand the value of having that, of which I can speak from experience, it really is worth doing. What sort of things should they focus on right now? You mentioned AI. Might that be the starting point, or would you need your vision first? How would you suggest that they start?
They would need their vision first, because otherwise they're just going to have that disjointed message. You're just going to put out whatever, thinking the more stuff I just put out, the better it's going to be. But how AI works, it works like somebody doing their PhD, where they're gathering information from everywhere and going to smush it together into one big report at the end. So if your stuff is not matching up, you're not going to be chosen, because it will look at, okay, they're an expert on their website, but no, their social media is not quite there. So they're not talking about that there. So that means they can't be the expert. Who's doing both together? Oh, and then who's talking on a podcast or has done a video or a TV interview and talking about that too? Okay, 3 things all match. They must be the expert. So it looks like that as default. So if so that message and that vision needs to be finalized first, and it needs to be crystal clear and specific. You don't want to be like, everyone says, I'm the leader of blah, blah, blah. They all have that generic stuff. Your stuff needs to be interesting enough that AI would see it as different and unique, and not as the fluff that everyone else is putting out there. There has to be something original in it. And it will actually scrape away any of those words that are fluff. Like if it says innovative, blah, 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 but there's no facts to prove up why it's innovative, it just says, okay, marketing jargon off. Like it's
Yeah. I mean, for it to really, so does it really delve that? I suppose it's AI. Of course, it delves.
It has to. It's smart.
But so yeah. No, I'm a big advocate of AI. By the way, I use it. I probably use it a little bit too much, to be fair. I'm addicted to it. But there we are. But with that though, so it's really. Does it have like what I'm trying to say? Like, does it have a priority of platforms or areas that it checks first? So like, say for instance, if I've not got any brand presence and I really want to have complete synergy in my company, is there a level of where I should target first, like website and then social media, then I don't know, YouTube, that sort of thing? Or are there other areas it also takes into consideration and all of them are equal?
It takes into multiple things into consideration. The website for sure do it, because you still need SEO. So you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're going to do your SEO, you're going to do your messaging, so you got something. So at least there's something out there. It does pick up a lot of stuff from LinkedIn and Instagram, so social media is something that it picks up a lot of, because it has social media ranks. So if I post something and it's got a specific idea, it shows me as an authority. But if other people are liking it and commenting, it's raising my post, which gives me even more authority. So that helps rank. So that helps bring you in as an expert there. But press releases are also good, because they will, usually you reinforce your message within your press release, and you have a quote from your authority figure. So that's, again, reinforcing. If you can't do that, then get on a podcast, get on something if it's something that's more in your budget. Because what happens when you're on a podcast like this or some interview, first of all, there'll be an introduction from the host, which will say why you're an authority figure. So again, a third party saying what you do and why you do it. So all these things kind of go into play, but definitely the website I would do first, and one social media platform. They should just pick the one that they like the best, or that hits their audience the most. Like I said, I don't do TikTok. I watch TikTok, but I don't have the skills to do it well. And I know my audience is mostly following me on LinkedIn, so I focus on that one. So and that should be. Otherwise, if it's depending on how big the company is, it's time consuming to do a lot of marketing all the time.
It is. And you touched on, that's a really good tip actually. You touched on the right platform. Because if you're on the platform that perhaps has the wrong audience, you're not going to get much engagement or much feedback from it. In which case you're just going to be like everybody else. If you're on the right platform and you understand your vision, so therefore you can understand your ideal client in a profile, you then can dilute it down to which is the right platform for you and where is your client sitting right now on the services or product that you supply. And therefore you're going to have more engagement because you're now resonating with the right audience. And that, I'm guessing, you will know probably better than me, that would then boost your profile because now you're getting more engagement. So it kind of stems right back to doing that groundwork, doesn't it, of understanding what are you trying to achieve and what service or product are you trying to deliver and to whom,
And to who. And if you're only focusing on, those few little platforms, then you do a better job. If you're trying to hit all of them, and some companies can do it. They have a bigger team. They hired an agency. They have Kelly Longberg working for them, so she's making sure their personal brand is awesome. So
I think we'd all love Kelly Lundberg working for us, wouldn't we?
Her.
That would
She's
be awesome.
So
We'd certainly be ranking high, wouldn't we, if that was the case?
Yes. So then you can hit them. But if you can't, you're a solopreneur, you're just starting out, you're busy trying to service your clients because you're what you really like about your job is the actual service you provide, not doing the marketing for it. Then if you're just focused on one or two, then you can do a really good job because it's only going to be a few hours a week rather than your whole week, because doing social media on all those platforms and everything else is a full-time job.
It really is. And also you've got to make it worth your while, because every platform has to have its own way of messaging, isn't it? So you've got to tweak it. Otherwise, again, you're just going to fall flat on your face no matter what. So you have to understand that. So to constantly tweak all of the messaging for each platform. So that's why it's best to start with one or two. That's really where your target audience is, and then grow from there if you wanted to. But if it's working, then why would you want to move? So it's really important.
Fine-tune your voice, get comfortable with it. Yeah,
definitely.
I would do that first. Just make it more controllable, and also consistency. AI will rank consistency. It's looking for new things. So if you did a post 1 year ago and you haven't done anything since, that's old news. That's not going to be picked up.
Yeah.
But if you're consistently talking about it, then they're like, ooh, that person is the expert of today. So you have a better chance.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because it goes nicely into my next question. Personal branding. So let's say, for instance, I'm an owner of a company, and is it important that I brand myself or the company? Because we talked about the company's branding. Is it just as important for me to do mine too? Or should I focus only on the company branding? Because you mentioned about Daniel Priestley's key person of influence, which I think you're touching on a bit there with regarding AI will pick you up as the person in that industry, the leader of that industry. Or should we focus only on the company? What do you think? Or is there a difference?
There is a difference. It depends on your services and what you're offering. It's good to have both, because it first of all will make you a little bit more unique. Because, for example, I do communications. There's a lot of communications agencies that are out there, but there's only one me. So if I'm on my social media and I'm promoting through my company, it's going to talk about communications. We do this, we do that, we work with a client that did this. So or if I sold a product, here's our product, here's the benefits, here's whatever. But if it's me, then I can tell personal stories. And people want to engage with people. So I do find the stuff that Definitely. I do in my own works better. And working with other experts, for example, CEOs of company or C-levels, because they need to attract talent, they need to keep that vision going. People follow them because of who they are and what they talk about. Like if you think of Mary Barra, who is CEO of Ford, you might follow Ford because you like to look at pictures of pretty cars, but she's interesting because she talks about the vision. She talks about the future of automotive. She talks about things that are aligned to the vision of the company, but she has her personal spin to show how she is leading the company into that vision. So it makes it a little bit, even with other companies, people are following, a lot of times they follow the CEOs, not just the corporate page. Even for scientists are always like, I don't need this. But the thing is, you can really talk about your research beyond a research paper when it's you talking about it. Or if you are in R&D of a company, you can really talk about why things need to be more sustainable, or why you're doing this specific thing, or why the formulation has changed, or what's coming up, what you see is coming up in the future. And that really builds your credibility and makes people trust the product even more.
Yeah, that I think, which is really funny because it takes us right back to the beginning of the podcast where you mentioned trust. And you alluded there. And I think having that personality, because like you say, people buy from people, which is something that is constantly being said at the moment. But I think it's so true. But in order to buy from somebody, ideally you would normally buy from somebody that you've got some sort of trust element with. And if you're building your personal brand, as even associated to that company, they're still likely to buy from you because they know, okay, well, we know that Michelle, she's heading up that company, and we've been following her for about 2 years. We like her stuff. I'm sure she'll make sure that we're okay. And that is kind of having that. Let's say, for instance, if they had another 2 companies to compare you with, and they didn't know anything about the owners there, but they had this one, your one, and they've been watching you for a little while, and now they've got that sort of like connection with you a little bit, and I think that's probably the power of that, would you say?
Yeah, it's definitely the power of it. Because if you think back before we had internet, a loyalty was a big deal. And it's because people usually bought from their own city. There wasn't a lot of Amazon and stuff that we have now. And you went back to the same place. You bought your meat from the same Italian deli because the guy was funny and he always remembered your name. You went to the same pub down the street because it was people. And it's the same with social media. Now the world's big, but we still like to know who's behind it. We're still curious. And if you can build that rapport that way, then there's a better chance. And sometimes you do end up meeting them in real life. It's funny when you do, because you will have the people who comment often. You kind of get to know them through the internet.
Yeah, it's funny actually because I've only ever had that happen once, and he was a guy that was he had a commercial window cleaning company in Brisbane, Australia, and he was visiting London one time, and he and I had been messaging on LinkedIn, and we've both been commenting on each other's posts here and there. And then when they're standing in front of you, it's like, oh, normally I see you through a screen. It's a bit of a weird feeling, isn't it, that? It's quite funny. So it's almost like, I wouldn't say like movie star, but normally you see a movie star on a screen, and if you see them in real life, you're like, oh, this doesn't quite feel right, it's a bit funny.
No, it is weird, because then you feel a little bit exposed at the same time. Because I remember once I was at a conference, and of course, leading up to the conference, you say you're going to go to the conference, because but then I was walking by and someone called my name. I'm like, no, you don't know me, but I follow you on LinkedIn. I'm like, oh.
No, you have to go. And so do you know, obviously you've gone back to your architectural and language model there and your experience. There's been a bit of talk recently about, certainly LinkedIn, that's LinkedIn's version of saying that's why we're not really giving many posts the exposure that it needs, because it's now noticing some of the terminology that AI tends to use whenever people just whack their scripts in, like what you said earlier on about just whacking it all in and then just not really having a vision or direction or a story. You whack it all in, you think, okay, this is what people need to hear about, let me just post it. And certainly in LinkedIn's argument was the fact that they're not rewarding those sort of things. So they're looking out, or I guess they've got an AI system of their own. Yeah. And they would be looking out for what got generated on AI, and then perhaps what's actually had some effort put into it, and they're rewarding those a little bit more. Do you understand what sort of language you should use when you're going to use AI, and perhaps what to steer clear from in that way to make it your own tone of voice?
Yeah, I think now a lot of us, when you're reading LinkedIn, you can tell that they didn't do it, and I know how easy it is, because there's programs, they're so fun, but they make everything bland. So you can go in, you can record an answer to a question, and then your AI will create 20 posts based on that little short conversation and automatically just program it in for the next week. But basically it's saying the same thing 20 times. And
it's crazy.
And of course that's garbage. Like, I could see how LinkedIn and other social media platforms are like, well, we want quality. This is just putting crap out there. It's not even people anymore. It's just marketing stuff. But so there are things to look for. Like when you're, I don't bring any examples, otherwise I could show my screen, where you show when you show it and say, what do you think, AI or real? And a lot of times people would be, I think that's AI, because they could tell there's a rhythm to it. The sentences are shorter, and you can almost tell AI ChatGPT, AI Claude, because they're
really
little.
Wow.
There's the formatting's a little bit different, and then the words, certain words like unhinged, clarity. There's so many words that intersection, that they use. AI loves to use certain words. So you're like, okay, that's the same thing. Or the rhythm of the language isn't how people talk. Because nobody can talk, not everybody should be talking the exact same way. And when everybody's posts sound exactly the same, then you know that AI has taken control. So I work with them on what not to do. You definitely use AI, but you might need to train it. You might need to do a little bit more work than just recording a little script and then have it make 20 posts out of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when doing that, then what sort of things should they add in, or perhaps if they did use AI, what sort of things should they perhaps take out or replace from their own personal input, let's say?
They should definitely add personal stories, because AI won't know your personal stories. It will only know what it can find on the internet. So if I wanted to write a post on, I don't know, EV cars or something, and I said, AI, write 20 posts about EV cars and where they're going in the future and make them positive. It will come up with a whole bunch of stuff. It will pull in facts, it will do whatever, but it won't have anything personal from me. It won't say, oh, I've been looking at EV cars and yesterday I went to this dealership down on this street and I saw this car and this car. And then, so it adds something to it where right away people are like, oh, what did she see? Like there's a story. It's not just, I can't even think of the format for EV, but it's always like, everyone's buying an EV car, but they're not always the same. Here's the problem that everyone seems to have, like AI has like a certain tone to it.
Yeah.
So add something personal, keep it on your message, because your message shouldn't be AI generated. Your vision for your company is your own vision. The three things that your strengths are, your USPs, are your own USPs, because they should be different from, that's why they're unique. They should be different from your competitors. So make sure you have those in there. And watch the rhythm. If it's not how you talk, because your friends are going to know you don't talk like that. Take those words out. You never use those words.
Yeah.
Don't put them in. Replace them with something else. And if you're not a good writer, just ask ChatGPT or whatever one you're using to say, I never say that word intersection. I would never say this word. Can you put something in that's different? And it will give you some different options. And then at least it's getting closer. And hopefully it will be one of the ones that are selected.
Yeah, like years ago when you used to do, before AI came about, and you would really have to sit there and physically write your posts, and then you'd have to save them, and then you would then use, I don't know, I used to save them on the tabs, and then a month later I'd put them out, but I'd make my own little twist again. You'd really put in the hard yards. And I think where it's got so easy, people have got accustomed to that easiness level. And now they're saying, well, actually, no, you've got to dial it back a couple of levels now, because now you've really got to put in, not quite the hard yards, because you're still getting assistance, but we're going to reward those that really put in the effort and make it personal, as you say. Still use AI, but then, like you say, reword it. Would I really speak like that? If not, then let me just reword it to actually how I would speak, and perhaps add in a little bit of personal voice to it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because everyone has struggles. Everyone has, like I said, everyone has a story. So
yeah, definitely, yeah.
And the thing is, people don't care how boring your story is. Like I said, I went to the car dealership. Oh, she has a story. She picked up her kids. What happened?
That's it, yeah. That's what I was talking about.
I was watching football last week. Oh, so was I. Let's see.
That's what I mentioned about earlier on. Like, some people... And I'm sure people resonated with their story. It didn't resonate with me, so that's why I said, well, I don't really think it was a story, but it's only because it didn't resonate with me. But they were getting so much engagement. I'm like, I think it was just written well, but it was just such a random story. Like, there's obviously people out there for everything, and it's just like, you only need a small audience. That's all you need. And if you've got a few that resonate with it, then great. But if you're being yourself, then that's better. That's miles better,
Yes, yeah.
So you've built Blue Gecko. What do you think is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned whilst building Blue Gecko?
Oh, I've had so many things. Blue Gecko has been pivoting like crazy for the last 4 years.
Okay.
First of all, don't grow too fast. I had at first, one time I had a lot more employees, and then I was so focused on making sure I always had clients and work that I was not enjoying the job. because I wanted to make sure that they had something to do and that I can always pay them. So it was just it was too fast. I couldn't. It was easier to scale back and just focus back on the vision, like get back to why I started and what I do. So that was definitely one big lesson. Especially if at the beginning because at the beginning, usually when you start a business, it's because you already have a couple clients lined up. So you know you're going to do okay. So you feel busy right away. But what if one of them leaves and then suddenly you're like, oh, now I have to figure out NDB.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I got to do sales.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing
That's
is
true.
not to forget to do sales, because you do get caught up with just doing what you like about your business, and then you always forget to go out and actually sell the business. And you do have to keep selling it. People have to know about it. You have to keep telling people. People move, people change, their budgets. The company leadership changes, so they change all their suppliers. So you always have to keep building that reputation and not just trust that referrals will keep you alive. So that's another thing, is the sales. And I've learned that the hard way, because I don't like to do the sales side. I like to do the social media. I like to do the thought leadership. I like to do what I do. I like to work with my clients and do a really good job. But I don't like to go out and sell.
It's really funny. Excuse me. It's really funny you mentioned that, because that's something that I learned last year, actually. I did rely a lot on referrals, and I used to hear many people talking about, oh, the marketing machine, you must build the marketing machine. And I thought, well, my marketing machine is referrals, and it's going well, thanks very much. But it was only when things started to get a little bit tighter, and also my relationships with my clients are then sort of like, I've been with them for years and years and years, they then think, do you know what, I'm going to move jobs, I'm going to move industries. Now, all of a sudden, your referral scheme isn't quite what it was. Now you're leaning on your marketing and your sales to bring in the business, and you haven't got a bulletproof marketing plan, or you haven't got a really good marketing process to keep that flow of leads coming in. And that's what, even if you were really, really busy with referrals, I agree with you. I would still say, still work on your marketing machine. Still ensure that you're filling up that pipeline, because then what you can do is, when you've got so many, you can start to be really picky with who you're going to do business with. And actually, in turn, Michelle, I'm sure you've realised this as well, you've experienced this too. When you say no to someone that has passed your quote or wants to do business with you, all of a sudden, it's like FOMO. They want to do more business with you. So it's like, because now you're getting really picky of who you work with, and you say, actually, I'm only going to pick you guys because you're really good. You're like my 5-star clients. I'm only going to work with you. All of a sudden, the rest of them are saying, well, why didn't you do work with us? And I actually had one incident where I actually had to go down and meet them on site and explain, because it was getting quite rude in the end. I was like, look, no, I'm too busy. I cannot fit you in. I'm doing you a favour. I can't keep my promise. And he took it as an offence. I started to go and meet him for coffee because it really got a bit out of hand. I was like, look, all I said was no. And it was, so it was really funny. But that's one thing I would say is, as you said as well, it's really funny you mentioned that, because I totally agree. You've got to keep going with your marketing funnel, no matter what. Newsletters, like you say, your website, making sure that you're clean on the AI sort of like searches and such, and keep your presence going. Otherwise, people make up your personal brand and where you are, and it might not be completely correct.
Yeah. And never forget your local market. For me, because I move a lot, I always have to rebuild my reputation in all the markets. And it would be so easy for me just to lean on my Saudi market or my Belgium market. But now I'm in Dubai now for 1 year. I really need to focus on this market, because what if my other guys pick somebody local there and I'm not there anymore?
They might have the same values and say, well, we're going to go with someone local now. Michelle's not local. So you never know, do you? You never know. So, Michelle, I've got a couple of quick fire rounds. So Here we go. So, best piece of communication advice you would say in a sentence?
Know your message and be authentic. That's basically all it is. If you are true to who you are, people will listen and remember. Like, even if you're look at Trump. Authentic. Not everyone likes him, but you remember him.
Oh yeah. Remember him for years. Yeah, that's very true. He's got one big divide, but those that are following him are really following him, and those that don't like him are really not liking him. But
Are really not liking him, but
you know that
he's authentic. He's who he is.
He's definitely authentic, for sure. So biggest red flag when a business owner describes what they do. So if you say, oh, I'm already doing this, what do you think? That's a massive red flag for me.
When they only talk in jargon, that's my biggest red flag. When they say we are the best specialty, blah blah blah, but at the end I still don't know what they're talking about. That's a red flag. That means that they're not sure what they do either, and they haven't. If they can't explain it to me, they have not been able to explain it to anybody else. That's one. The other one is if they do too much. We are a personal training company that does also car washing and pet cleaning and something else, and DJing. I'm like, okay, who are you?
Exactly. That's right. Yeah, definitely. That's
so
very true.
Those are the red flags. It's like, okay, let's narrow down to what you really can do and what you really offer, and let's focus on that, and we can talk about those other ones later.
Yeah. So, and then last one is, what does a business that communicates really well actually look like? Like when you acknowledge it, you're like, they've done their homework. They're complete synergy.
Everything feels smooth. They don't have to tell me who they are. I know who they are, and I can sell them to somebody else because I know them so well. I know what they stand for. I know their imagery looks. There's a look to it. Their tone is the same, and their team is also on board. So you see the corporate people talking. You see their CEO or their C-levels are also on social media, and they're talking, feeding back into that vision, saying their own thing in their own words. And then when you meet them or you see them at a conference talking on a panel, that consistency is still there. There's no surprises. And then you know they've got it. Everything's working.
That's really good. The way you just said that about you could sell for them. If you could sell for them, that means that their communication has been super consistent. It's been done with complete clarity, and you completely understand and get what service or product they're actually selling. You know, for you not to work with them, and that's actually a really good goal, isn't it? Like to get somebody that doesn't even know you, like a client or something, that say, "What do we do? What's our personality?" And if they can explain it, then you know you're doing a good job.
Yeah, and I'm going to use Kelly as an example again.
Yeah,
as we know from your thing, I could sell Kelly because I know she does personal branding. She's extremely consistent in what she does, and it's good.
Yeah,
that's her job, but it's that's what she does. She doesn't do social media. She doesn't do whatever. It's personal branding, and she's got it down.
Yeah, that's a very good example and very true too. Yeah. So Michelle, if someone wanted to reach out and get in touch with you, where is the best way, or how can they get in touch with you?
LinkedIn is probably the best. I'm on there a lot. So if they just go to LinkedIn and type in my name, I'm there. I do have a website.
And your full name?
Michelle Ponto.
Michelle Ponto. Okay.
Yeah.
And your website?
It's wearebluegecko.com.
Okay, so wearebluegecko.com. Brilliant.
Yes.
That's
and I'm
excellent.
going to this is another lesson for people who are starting their businesses.
Sure,
My
go
website
ahead.
sounded like such a cool name when I started it 4 years ago, but now that I live in countries where English is not the first language, it's the longest thing to spell out for people. So keep it simple. Think about people who English is not the first language. It might sound cool in your language, but it's hard.
It's true actually. That does sound like a good website, but then like you're trying to explain it to somebody else about English isn't their first language, and I get that. That's okay. Good lesson. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for being on work. I really appreciate it, and I wanted to get you on anyway because so much is happening with AI, and of course how you use your language and how you communicate is definitely so important. So to have you on talking about it is really, really good. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
Have a good day.
It's
Cheers,
been fun.